It's like the tale of two Matts, two Matt Walshes today, because the good Matt Walsh from Veep and formerly UCB, although I imagine he was one of the founders, he was the 4 or 5 founders of UCB. He has said he's not going to cross the picket line and do Dancing with the Stars.
Yes, they had told him that it was not, that it was totally fine. It was not crossing a WGA picket line. He got more information that might not be the case, and he resigned basically immediately with a great statement on it. So that's the kind of stuff you want to reward.
But fundamentalist theocrat Matt Walsh, the bad Matt Walsh, less interesting, more determined to show his masculinity by having to wear flannel shirts, Matt Walsh.
Signifying masculinity.
Performing his gender always.
He has an issue with universal voting.
For me, these people should not be allowed to vote. I mean, you hear people say that in a half-joking way. Oh, I can't believe these people can vote. But really, they shouldn't be able to. Like, actually, they should not be able to vote. That should be something that that becomes a serious topic of conversation. Okay, like the kind of thing that
we should say he's responding to a poll showing that Americans are woefully uneducated in terms of civil society.
Yeah.
That people don't know who their representatives are. They don't know what their constitutional rights are. They don't know the 3 branches of government, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. He's almost like advocating for the implementation of questions about civics when you're when you're trying to vote, as if we've never done that before to black people in the South in this country.
I would imagine if we were to eliminate people based upon their understanding of civics, that elections would be more or less exactly like they are now. The dynamic, like I mean, I just remember going down to Glenn Beck's 9/12 rally and interviewing people, and all of them, like, they at that time were like, we can't have bills that are over 100 pages long. That they would say stuff like, one woman I spoke to was like, I'm here because I support the Constitution. Is that right? Yes. And like, what things do you want that you think are not constitutional? Well, this whole God and this whole religion and separation of church and state, I think that's wrong. And I'm like, but that's a concept embedded in the Constitution. And she's like, well, I haven't actually read the Constitution. I'm going to be taking a course on studying it in October, she said.
Go online, please.
And I'm like, well, what if you find out that when you read the Constitution, it doesn't say what you think it does? Oh, that might be a problem. I mean, that's but here, let's hear Matt Walsh's ideas for democracy.
Gene Bajlan made the point that actually we're just going to be ruled by Vox readers if we ever institute this, which I think is a funny.
Exactly.
They should not be able to vote. That should be something that that becomes a serious topic of conversation. Okay, like the kind of thing that comes up at presidential debates.
Yeah, please.
Okay, like an issue that political parties have to deal with in their platforms.
Incidentally, just in case you forgot, the Republican Party's platform, people should check that out. It basically just says, see Donald Trump.
And Donald Trump is currently in the federal indictment brought by Jack Smith, being charged under those kind of like auspices, saying that he violated people's civil rights by trying to overturn the election in places like Georgia, and violated their right to vote by saying we should basically be throwing those out and find some extra votes, overturning the will of the people. So like, this is very much a fundamental thrust of what the Republican Party wants implemented. They are the anti-democracy party.
But there are a lot of people who are voting in this country who should not have that right. They don't deserve it. And as I've tried to explain many times, the right to vote, it is not a God-given right guaranteed to everybody regardless of anything. It's not. Okay, it's not fundamental to your human nature that you automatically are entitled to have a say over the political system in your country.
Can we stop here for a second? Can we just recognize the absolute? This is so stupid to be arguing that we should not allow people to vote unless they have a certain understanding of their civic responsibility, unless they have an understanding of civics. And to argue that they should not have that right, it's because God didn't give it to them. Do you see this fundamental conflict here by saying, on one hand, you don't have a right to vote because God didn't give it to you, despite the fact that our civic institutions, our Constitution, gives you that right. And to say that you don't have a God-given right, and therefore we should take it away from people who don't understand their civic rights. There is nothing in the Constitution that says you need to be aware of these civic rights to exercise them.
That's because he doesn't really care about the civic rights part. He cares about the God-given part. He's just saying that.
Of course. This is a theocrat.
He says it in his bio on Twitter that he's a theocratic fascist.
Say it as a joke.
I know, he's trying to say it as a joke, but we know that this is what this looks like.
Totally. And the idea that you're going to punish people for not being aware of their rights and not being engaged as citizens, not subjects, not followers of God, not subjects of, but as citizens. To say your lack of knowledge as a citizen means that you can't get a vote because God didn't give it to you. That is so blinkered. The idea that there are people listening to this and actually saying to themselves, like, this makes sense. They're theocrats. God doesn't have to give you a right in a civil society to do anything.
In fact, that is part of why it is so important that everyone gets to participate, because it's not God-given. It is the way that we've decided we should structure our government.
And our government, our civics, are based upon the idea that we reject a king. And in rejecting a king, and in rejecting a monarchy, particularly during the Enlightenment, it was about rejecting the idea that God has anointed one specific person or family to rule over others. Continue.
It's not. There are some basic guidelines that should be in place. You should have to earn that right. Not everybody should have it. And it is so incredibly obvious that if you are an absolute oblivious moron who knows nothing about your own country,
that's you,
or the political,
how many people
or the government that runs it, then you shouldn't have any say over it. It's not just that you shouldn't be able to vote; it's that you can't vote. Really, your vote is not really a vote. It's just random. You're throwing a dart at a board. You're rolling dice. It's not anything. Voting is going in and you're.
Yeah. Who do you think he applies that standard to? Urban centers, Detroit, Atlanta.
If it was just random, I think you'd see a lot more variation in the way certain people vote.
It is super clear where this goes, the path that this goes down. It is only the Christian white men, the evangelicals like Matt Walsh, or the Catholic, he's actually Catholic, the Christian white men who have the ability to make these choices because, women are too hysterical. He said that before, that they're too emotional. Men make reasoned arguments. Black people are too ignorant. Look at what they're doing. Look at the inner cities. You think that they have the civic knowledge? Muslims? they're not godly. They don't. My God wouldn't have given them a right to vote, so they shouldn't participate.
What he's setting up here, though, people should understand what's going on here. What he's setting up, understand that every policy or ideology he supports, to the extent that it has power in this country, is doing so in a minoritarian way.
Yep.
The Senate is reflects a real failure of populism and democracy. The last two Republican presidents won their first elections with less of the vote than the Democrat. In fact, there's been no Republican who, in their first term, who has gotten into office with more votes than another since George Herbert Walker Bush.
Yep.
And he is essentially, and we see this in states too, right? We see this with the gerrymandering. He is basically training his theocratic followers to accept minoritarian rule.
Yeah.
That we should be in charge of this, that the votes, that the elections that take place are invalid because people don't know what they're voting for. They're just randomly picking out numbers as if they're, monkeys.
Have faith in us. That's the thing. It's like you can tell even what he's trying to impose on people, putting aside like the fact that it does have, explicitly religious undertones. It is a religious construct of thinking as well, which is to have faith in the people that know what's best for you. Too much direct democracy is not godly because that is too empowering. When you're letting the esteemed senators rule over you, that is a much more traditionally religious hierarchical construct that doesn't encourage critical thought. And that's what Matt Walsh wants. I would love for him to have, by the way, a civics exam. Tommy Tuberville, someone just pointed this out in the IM. He didn't even know what the three branches of government were, so he wouldn't be able to vote, I guess, or would that count? But he doesn't even know, he doesn't even engage with the concept of separation of church and state. That's pretty fundamental. So by most standards, Matt Walsh would fail this test.
Is there any more of this clip?
You understand the issues and you're making an informed choice. It might be the wrong choice, but you're making an informed choice about what you want the future of the country to look like, and you understand the issues, and that's what a vote is. But walking in there randomly and saying, "Oh, I don't know," that's not voting. And yet this is how we determine the future of the country. And we all stand back like we're impotent to stop it. We've all decided that, well, yeah, we just have to let absolute, total, brain-dead morons determine the future of the country. What can we do about it? We can't do anything about it. Yep, they're just going to let them. We're going to let them drive us right off a cliff. That's our decision. There are things that can be done about it if we have the will to do it.
Let's be clear. What the means are to do that. You would have to change the Constitution. And of course, he knows that he's not going to amend the Constitution. So all of this rhetoric is really just to basically say elections are sort of not legit. And that minority, the fact that someone gets more votes than somebody else, dubious. That is what he's doing. And let's just be clear. I mean, you talk about authoritarianism, you talk about theocracy, and he does it based upon, what God has bestowed upon us. It's a theocracy in his particular sort of like flavor of this.
And how is it determined that someone's making a choice that's random or that that's not? Or who it is necessarily like it's obvious that anybody who votes against the interests that Walsh says don't know what they're doing. And therefore, I mean, all you need to do is look at how predictable voting patterns are. If it was really random, people are, going in and just randomly choosing. Now, I don't like the things that people vote upon, like why they decide to vote. And I would like people to have way more understanding of civics and policy. And if they did, people like Matt Walsh would have a much more difficult time, let's be honest. And he knows this. But none of what he's saying is about that. It is all about basically training his listeners,
his bigoted listeners, his fundamentalist mindset listeners and viewers, to discount elections that are won by a popular vote, unless the outcome is consistent with what he wants.
The good news for Matt, his audience is already pretty primed to think that way.
That's why they're there. That's why they're there. What should we do here? It's 2:45. All right, I'm going to read a couple IMs and we'll get out of here. We're going to have to do...
we'll do a bunch on Monday.
Do that data mining. Let's do this data mining.
Okay, yeah.
This is pretty funny since we're talking about Daily Wire. Daily Wire CEO Jeremy Boring responded to a Twitter user claiming that the Daily Wire received funds from Governor Ron DeSantis. Okay, this is obviously like a Trump supporter who's upset that Daily Wire is in the bag for Ron DeSantis.
And Boring, like, it was also in response to a joke Boring was making, being like, oh, everyone thinks I'm paid by Trump and DeSantis and Cruz. Like, they all think we're bought. And then this guy's like, the Daily Wire did receive funds from DeSantis.
Oh, what?
And then he goes, the Daily Wire did not, quote, receive funds.
Oh, he's going to get really pedantic here.
We received payment for renting our email lists. In other words, we sold all of our users' data.
Yeah.
And we have received such payment from many, many customers over the years, including many, many Republican candidates for various races. In other words, we have sold your data over and over and over. Incidentally, Donald Trump has spent something like 20 times more renting our list than DeSantis. Now, why would you say that? Well, partly because you want to make sure that not that your listeners and your subscribers feel like their data is safe with you and you're not exploiting them and you're not only getting paid by them, but using them as a product to many, many customers over the years, including many, many Republican candidates. But you also want to make it clear that you are in no way favoring DeSantis, and that in fact you're 20 times more in debt to Donald Trump, and want everybody to know that now that DeSantis is falling apart.
As a media organization.
And then he says all of these political rentals combined are something like 2 to 3% of Daily Wire's annual revenue, by the way. So in other words,
we make a shit ton?
No, in other words, we may make a lot of revenue, but selling your data is not even that lucrative to us, but we will do it over and over and over again. We care so little about you that even if this was only here to buy the creamer in the refrigerator for the coffee,
not do it.
We could easily not do it. We're still going to do it.
Free market, baby. By the way, a lot of media organizations do this. Check the terms of service when you sign up for memberships, even like, progressive or Democratic organizations, because they may sell your email address. That's happened before.
Good time to mention.
We won't do that
though. On the Majority Report, if you sign up for the AM Quickie, or
might be getting some emails from Pete Buttigieg.
But just know that we gave all your info to Pete Buttigieg
and Kamala.
And Kamala. We did it for both.
Yeah. And we did not. What did he say there? We did not receive funds. We did not receive funds from Deval Patrick.
Direct deposit.
Yeah.
That's right.
It was available the same day. Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, when you get that Joe Manchin for president email from No Labels,
just know that was about 2% of our revenue.
It was like, how many jugs of water should we get for coverage on well, let's see how many emails we sent out from Joe Manchin.
We work with Palantir to augment our data set so they know where you live too as well.
Hey, we don't work with them. We do not work with them. We receive
contract with
payment.
them.
We receive payment from Palantir, okay?
It's unbelievable what they're bragging about. It's unbelievable. We should say we do not sell our email list.
No.
If you are getting the AM Quickie, the only people that have access to your emails are us, like 3 of us here.
I don't think I do, so I definitely don't. I don't even have access to our YouTube stuff. Oh yeah, I should get that right. Yeah. Well. No, the point is like we don't really care.
Yeah, no, we don't even collect that stuff.
Yes, right. That's the point.
We do have emails, obviously, for the AM Quickie.
we need
That's
to send
the way
it
that
to
people
them,
get it.
Yeah.
Right.
But we do not sell that out to anybody. We place links in there to our advertisers, and we sometimes think like, hey, we should sell advertising, and we do that on occasion. I don't know if we do that really.
Also, how do you rent email lists? Like,
Oh,
it's not,
that is a massive business.
No, I understand that, but it's not
Rent
renting.
is a funny name.
Renting is hilarious because they still have all of the
rent access.
information.
I mean, the idea would be that you're not allowed to use it after a certain period of time, I think.
Okay, well then,
This is a big business.
But for their purposes, it's a campaign. It's not like the campaign is ongoing for the rest of time. They're purchasing it for the length of the campaign.
This is a big. It's a
Totally.
big business.
Yeah.
Big business, but we don't.
$100,000 apparently is what I'd seen for the DeSantis buy, and apparently Trump did a lot more than that. So it's
There you go,
interesting.
20 times.